Making a painting allows me to produce something out of nothing. So I begin with these raw materials, paint, canvas, which are really not very special or interesting in and of themselves. But once I start painting, anything is possible. That is what inspires me the most and is maybe the primary drive for continuing to make paintings. If I had to summarize my paintings in one sentence, I would say that the paintings are objects that create experiences that we can't have anywhere else in our life. So that you have to come to the painting to have a very particular experience. I've been making this type of work, these sort of abstracted landscapes, if you will, or sort of hybrid abstract paintings now for over a decade. And so I've sort of developed my own language and my own sense of space and movement on my own. And at this point, I almost have a storeroom or a stockpile of these things that are just in me. They're stored, like a language that I can pull from. Then I can take these ideas, these basic visual ideas or spatial ideas or even color ideas, and I can take those and extend them out farther and to advance and develop my work into new territory, make new things that I've never seen before. I'm not particularly driven to make landscape paintings per se. I just use this idea of a landscape as just a way to ground the paintings, both historically, but more importantly, just compositionally. Occasionally I veer away from it, but something about that grounding. So generally, the painting has to be grounded, there has to be a foreground. Many times there's sort of a sky element to them. I think that the landscapes in the paintings are slightly reminiscent of classical landscape painting at times. I'm not necessarily interested in the work being about that. In my work, there's an ongoing tension or a dialogue between abstraction and figuration. If I have to be honest, the reality is that it's a very strong and very real tension. It's not something I manufacture or invent. It's like an honest sort of internal artistic struggle that I have. When I make my work, that tension is very palpable. So much so that when I'm actually painting some of the forms in my work, sometimes I want to push them to be more and more obvious and representational and recognizable, but then I feel like, oh, I can't quite do that, so I have to push it back and alter the forms in the paintings so that they're more in accord or more in harmony with the whole. So what happens in the end, this tension actually creates this balance between abstraction and figuration. And so hopefully I think the successful paintings are ones that really sit right on that edge. There's plenty of paintings in the world, right? I mean, we have too many probably, millions upon millions of paintings. So I sort of have been asking myself more and more lately, why should I bother making a painting? What's the point of me making this thing and putting it out in the world? So if I'm going to do that, I think that at least I can make the attempt to make something that's never been seen before. I don't know if that's actually possible, but at least that's maybe another, I guess, inspirational idea or motivating factor in making the work is that challenge. How can I make something that has not existed yet and is actually a worthwhile thing to put out into the world? This new exhibition here at Reflex is actually quite important for me. I've been returning to these ideas that I'm exploring in these paintings over the course of the last, I'd say, 2 to 3 years. For the first year or so, I think they were a little bit hesitant or unsure about what they were going to be. And with this group of work here in this show, I feel like they're the very first manifestation of some confidence and more of a sure footing in terms of how to handle a painting. I've been trying to push bigger forms, bigger movement in the paintings. which is something that I haven't done for quite a while. So it's a very conscious thing. The other unique thing about this show is that I've hung a number of small works, which I've done in the past quite a while ago. But the small works this time around for this show have proved extremely important. They've really been the engine of the studio in many ways. Many of the small paintings taught me that I don't have to figure everything out in the paintings. I don't have to resolve and finish every little part of the painting. That ability to be careless and be reckless with the paintings has helped to really push my entire practice forward. And it was specifically for this exhibition that I began developing these smaller works, and which fed into many of the larger works in the show as well. I think the next step for me as an artist, there's two things that'll happen. One is I'm going to very seriously pursue making these smaller works, because I think it generates a lot of just good artistic thinking on my part. There's also just technical things that I'm going to be exploring next. Like, how do I have bigger movements in a painting? How do I have more open spaces of color in a painting? These are all kind of like formal things, maybe. Even down to, like, what size of brush do you use? To characterize it, I'd say this exhibition is really the start, but a very definitive start. It's not hesitant. It's definitely its own statement, but it's a definite statement about the beginning of what I think is a new time of development for myself.